Welcome, everybody. I'm Cora, and I'm 21. Has a loved one ever looked at you like you were a different person? Before I tell you about my dad and my boyfriend and all that drama, go ahead and like and subscribe so you can hear more hidden wisdom stories. I was always the good girl growing up, probably because my dad was super protective. I had early curfews, and I was never allowed to go out with a boy alone unless it was with my family or a church event. My whole life, I never did anything rebellious until I met Ryker. He moved into my math class senior year, and he'd sit in the back and tease me. I'd tell him to stop, that I needed to pay attention. Ryker just said he wanted to see me smile. And then after class, he asked me out. But Dad started asking all kinds of questions about him. He was freaking out already, and we hadn't even been on a date. But my mom stepped in, and Dad wasn't happy about letting Ryker take me out. He made Ryker shake his hand, and he stayed up to make sure I got in on time. One thing we both have in common is our love for horses. Dad taught me how to ride when I was a kid, and now we rode together regularly. It was a great place to talk. Something about the open plains and clip-clop just made it easier to listen. We went for a ride one afternoon, and Dad told me that he didn't trust Ryker, and my grades had gone down since I started seeing him. But Ryker and I were in love, and I didn't want to hear anything negative about him. I wanted to be near him all the time. But I was also supposed to be leaving for college in a few months. I had gotten a great scholarship to a state university a few hours away, and Dad helped me get set up in a place near campus. I felt sad that we would be apart, but one day, Ryker surprised me with the best news. He had gotten accepted to the same school, and we made plans to move in together. I thought my dad would be impressed because he was always saying that Ryker didn't seem like the kind of guy who kept his head in the books. But my dad told me that it was too soon for me to be moving in with a guy, and he wouldn't allow it. He said that he wouldn't pay for my classes, nor would he pay for my apartment if Ryker was anywhere near me. I couldn't believe how unfair my dad was being, and I was determined to do it without his help. I applied for student loans, found a job waiting tables, and got my own place with Ryker. And it was smaller, but it was ours. My dad and I stopped talking, and a couple years went by. But then I found out that Ryker wasn't going to classes. And then I thought maybe he had dropped out. But it turns out that Ryker wasn't ever registered. For 2 years, we walked to class together most days. But if he wasn't enrolled, where was he going? I had my friend Gina follow him one day to see what he was up to. And she called me the next day. Ryker was seeing 2 other girls behind my back. I was devastated. How could Ryker do that to me? My dad's instincts were right the whole time. I had to see him, so I jumped on a flight and took an Uber straight to Dad's work. But his colleagues told me he no longer worked there. When I went to my house, there was a for sale sign in the yard. Inside, most of the furniture was gone, and there were boxes strewn about everywhere. And then I saw my dad. It was so comforting to see his face, and I wanted to tell him how awful Ryker had been to me and throw myself into his arms. But he started screaming when I hugged him. He ran off and locked himself in the study and called the police on me. I showed the officers my driver's license to prove I lived there. But my dad kept shouting that I was a phony and I was trying to replace his daughter. Thank goodness my mom came home, because she was the only one who could explain what was happening. My dad had a stroke and developed what was called Capgras Syndrome, which causes people to adopt an irrational belief that someone close to them has been replaced by an imposter. The syndrome cost my dad his job because he couldn't function normally, and my mom went back to teaching full-time. They were selling the house and moving into a smaller place so they could afford the treatment. My father couldn't even recognize me, and I think it was too much to bear. But then, at the airport, something changed my mind. I saw this little girl, maybe 4 years old, and it looked like she had the worst cold, but her dad was doing everything he could to cheer her up, and it reminded me of when I was a kid. Anytime I'd feel under the weather, Dad would buy me a present and call it a sick surprise. He just had a way of turning things around and making bad things good. And I realized that maybe I could do the same for him now that he was sick. Maybe I could find a school closer to home. I gave Ryker the boot and returned home to care for my dad. There's a saying out there that blood is thicker than water. I learned that family was the most important thing to me. You see, without those close to us to share our victories and tragedies with, we're absolutely lost. I know I was. Have you ever taken your family for granted? Tell us about it in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden wisdom stories. Remember, when you share our stories, you're sharing wisdom.